I sat at my son's dinner table, fork frozen midway to my mouth, when I asked about their upcoming family vacation. "Just let me know when the trip is, so I can plan around it," I said warmly. Brian's face hardened in a way I'd never seen before. "You're not part of the trip, Mom. And honestly, you're not really part of this family anymore either. Just forget it." The room erupted in laughter. His wife, his kids, even his brother joined in. I set down my fork and walked out into the cold November night. My hands shook on the steering wheel as I drove through the dark Connecticut suburbs toward my empty house. Tears blurred the streetlights into watery halos. The laughter still echoed in my ears. My own family. My own sons. They'd humiliated me like I was nothing. The dinner had started normally enough. Amanda had made pot roast, and the grandchildren had been on their phones as usual. Tyler barely looked up when I arrived, and Chloe gave me a distracted hug. My younger son, Derek, sat beside his girlfriend, both nursing glasses of wine. Everything seemed typical for a Thursday night family dinner until I made the mistake of asking about their vacation plans. They'd been discussing the Hawaii trip for weeks in my presence. 2 weeks on Maui over Christmas, staying at some resort near the beach. I'd assumed, foolishly as it turned out, that I was included. After all, I'd been helping them financially for years. I'd been there for every crisis, every shortfall, every emergency. When I pulled into my driveway, the house Frank and I had bought 32 years ago looked dark and lonely. Frank had been gone for 5 years now, taken by a sudden heart attack at 68. The life insurance he'd left me was supposed to secure my retirement, let me travel, maybe buy a little cabin in the mountains. Instead, I'd poured it into my children's lives, believing I was building something beautiful. Family bonds, security, love. I couldn't sleep that night. At 2 a.m, I sat at my kitchen table with 5 years of bank statements spread before me. The numbers told a story I'd been avoiding. $50,000 to Brian and Amanda for Amanda's boutique clothing store that was supposed to make them financially independent. Except I'd never actually seen the store. Every time I asked to visit, Amanda had an excuse. The mortgage I'd co-signed on their house, $575,000. Their credit hadn't been good enough on its own. I'd put my name and my financial security on the line because Brian said they needed a good school district for the kids. The car payments I'd been making for 8 months. $720 a month for Amanda's luxury SUV. She'd asked for help, just temporarily, while the boutique got established. That was last March. Then there was Derek. I'd paid for his college, covered his rent twice when he was between jobs, and just last month I'd given him $3,000 for what he called an investment opportunity. He'd promised to pay me back with interest. I added it up 3 times, hoping I'd made a mistake. $187,000. In 5 years, I'd given my son's families $187,000. My retirement savings had dwindled from $400,000 to barely $200,000. At 67 years old, I was hemorrhaging money to support people who'd just laughed at me. At 3:15 in the morning, I made a decision. I logged into my bank's website and stopped the automatic payments scheduled for Amanda's car. The payment was due in 3 days. Then I opened my email and wrote a formal letter to Brian. Dear Brian, after careful consideration of my own financial situation, I can no longer provide monetary assistance to your family. I need to focus on my retirement security. The automatic car payment has been stopped. I wish you and your family well. Mom. I sent it before I could second-guess myself. Then I sat in the dark kitchen, listening to the old house settle around me, and wondered if I'd just made everything worse. The answer came at 7:30 the next morning. My phone exploded with a call from Amanda. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Amanda's voice was pure venom. "No pretense of sweetness now. I just checked our account. You stopped the car payment?" "I can't afford it anymore," I said quietly. "Can't afford it? You live in a paid-off house with Frank's life insurance sitting in the bank. You can afford whatever I tell you to afford." The words hit me like a slap. "Excuse me? You heard me. You're going to reinstate that payment right now, or you'll never see Tyler or Chloe again. Do you understand me? Never." Something cold settled in my chest. "You made it very clear last night that I'm not part of the family. So I'm simply accepting that reality." "You bitter old woman. You're going to regret this." I hung up. My hands were steady now. I'd found something in myself I'd lost years ago, a spine. The doorbell rang at 2 that afternoon. Derek stood on my porch, his face flushed with anger. "Mom, what are you doing? Brian just called me. He's freaking out." "Come in, Derek." He followed me to the living room but wouldn't sit. "You can't just cut them off over a joke. Brian said it was a joke at dinner. You're being petty and vindictive." "A joke," I repeated flatly. "Did you think it was funny? I mean, it was awkward, but Amanda's got a weird sense of humor. The point is, you're overreacting. They need your help, and you're punishing them because your feelings got hurt." I looked at my younger son, this boy I'd raised, and saw a stranger. "Derek, I've given your brother's family over $180,000 in 5 years. I've co-signed loans, made car payments, funded a business that doesn't seem to exist. I'm 67 years old, and my retirement savings are half of what they should be. So what? You're supposed to help family. That's what parents do. And what do children do, Derek? Do they laugh when their mother is humiliated? Do they demand more and more money while giving nothing back?" His face hardened. "You're playing the victim. You always do this. Everything has to be about you and your feelings. Get out." "What?" "Get out of my house." He stared at me, shocked. Then his expression turned mean, something I'd never seen in him before. "Fine. But don't come crying to me when you're old and alone, and nobody wants anything to do with you." He slammed the door on his way out. I stood in my living room, surrounded by family photos on the walls, and realized I'd just lost both my sons in less than 24 hours. That evening, a certified letter arrived. My hand shook as I opened it. It was from a credit card company, demanding payment for $32,000 on an account that was 3 months past due. An account I'd supposedly co-signed for Brian 2 years ago. I had no memory of this credit card. None. I called the company immediately, but they insisted my signature was on the application. They said if I didn't pay, they'd sue. The lawsuit was already being prepared. I pulled out the old documents I'd saved, the ones I'd actually signed, the mortgage papers. A small business loan from 3 years ago. I compared the signatures on the credit card application they'd emailed me. The signature looked like mine, but something was wrong. The loop on the V in Vicky was different, slightly wider than I made it. I'd signed my name thousands of times in my life. I knew my own signature. Someone had forged it. Brian and Amanda had forged my signature on a $32,000 credit card and run it up to the limit. Then they'd stopped paying, letting me take the legal consequences. I sat at my kitchen table with the letter in my hands and realized with absolute clarity that this was just the beginning. If they'd forged one document, how many others were there? How deep did this betrayal go? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Pay up, or everyone will know what kind of mother you are." They thought they could threaten me. They thought I was weak. They were about to learn otherwise. 3 days after the dinner, Amanda's car payment failed. I knew because Brian called me at 6 in the morning, his voice tight with panic. "Mom, the payment didn't go through." Amanda's screaming at me. "You have to fix this." I hung up without responding and turned off my phone. But the peace didn't last. At 9, there was pounding on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw a man in a suit holding a clipboard. My stomach dropped. I opened the door. "Vicky Hutchison?" "Yes. I'm serving you with a summons." He handed me papers and walked away. I was being sued by the credit card company. Court date in 30 days. They wanted the full $32,000 plus interest and legal fees. $41,000 total. My phone rang again. I'd turned it back on out of habit. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Hutchison? This is Allied Collections calling about an outstanding debt." "What debt?" "You're listed as co-borrower on a business loan for $75,000. The account is 3 months past due. We need payment arrangements today." "I never borrowed $75,000. "Ma'am, I'm looking at your signed application right here. When was this loan originated?" "March of this year." "March, 8 months ago. I need to see those documents." "We can email them to you, but Mrs. Hutchison, this is a serious matter. If payment isn't received, we'll be forced to take legal action." I hung up and immediately drove to my bank. Gerald, the branch manager, had known me for 20 years. He took one look at my face and ushered me into his office. "Vicky, what's wrong?" I explained everything. The forged credit card, the mysterious business loan, the car payments, and the humiliation at dinner. Gerald listened, his expression growing darker. "Let me pull your credit report," he said quietly. We sat in silence while his computer loaded. Then his face went pale. "Vicky, there are 6 inquiries on your credit in the past 8 months. 2 loans, 3 credit cards, and a line of credit. Do you know about any of these?" "No. Your credit score has dropped 90 points. You're showing multiple accounts in collections." He turned the screen toward me. "This is identity theft." The words hung in the air between us. Identity theft. But I knew who the thief was. "It's my son," I said. "Brian and his wife. They've been forging my signature." Gerald's face was grim. "Then you need to file a police report immediately. This is a felony. If I file a report, he could go to prison. If you don't file a report, you'll be liable for all these debts. Vicky, we're talking about over $100,000 that I can see just on this credit report. There might be more." I drove to the police station in a daze. The detective who took my report was a tired-looking woman named Patricia Santos. She listened to my story, took copies of everything I brought, and shook her head. "Ma'am, I'll be straight with you. If we investigate and find your son committed fraud, he's looking at 5 to 10 years in prison. Are you prepared for that?" "I don't know. Think about it. Once we start this, it can't be stopped. If there's evidence of forgery, the state will prosecute whether you want them to or not." I filed the report. What choice did I have? I'd barely gotten home when Brian's car screeched into my driveway. He and Amanda stormed to my door. I didn't want to let them in, but Brian pushed past me. "A police report?" he shouted. "You filed a police report against me? You forged my signature." Multiple times. I did no such thing. But his eyes slid away from mine. Amanda stepped forward, her face twisted with rage. "You vindictive witch! We asked for your help and you agreed. Now you're pretending you don't remember, trying to destroy us. I never signed those documents." "Yes, you did. You came to our house, you signed everything, and now you're having some kind of memory problem and blaming us." The gaslighting was so blatant, so cruel, that I almost laughed. Almost. "Get out of my house." "We're 2 months behind on the mortgage," Brian said, and now he was crying. 2 months, Mom. If we miss another payment, they'll start foreclosure. We need $11,000 to catch up, and you need to start making the monthly payments like you promised." I promised nothing. Amanda stepped closer, her voice dropping to something dangerous. "You listen to me, old woman. You're going to drop that police report. You're going to pay what you owe us. Or I will destroy you. I'll tell everyone at church what a terrible mother you are. I'll tell the grandchildren you're crazy and dangerous. I'll make sure every person in this town knows you abandoned your family when they needed you most. Do you understand?" I looked at my son, waiting for him to defend me, to say something. But he just stood there, tears running down his face, letting his wife threaten me. "Get out," I said again. "Both of you. Now." After they left, I locked all the doors and closed all the curtains. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone when it rang again. "Derek, Mom, you have to help me." His voice was desperate, panicked. "I'm in trouble." "What kind of trouble?" "I borrowed money, $40,000, from a private lender. Brian said he had this great cryptocurrency investment, guaranteed returns. I used the money, and it's all gone. The whole thing was a scam, and now the lender wants his money back with interest, $50,000 total. He's threatening me, Mom. He says if I don't pay, something bad is going to happen." My mind reeled. Both my sons, drowning in debt, dragging me down with them. "I don't have that kind of money, Derek." "Yes, you do. You have Frank's life insurance. Please, Mom, I'm scared. These aren't good people. They know where I live. They know where I work." "What about Brian? He got you into this." Derek laughed bitterly. "Brian's in worse shape than I am. Mom, please. I'm your son." "I'll think about it," I said, and hung up before he could say more. I sat in my darkened living room, feeling the walls close in. Both sons needed money. Both were in financial quicksand, and both expected me to drown with them. My computer chimed with an email. Unknown sender. I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. Inside were photos. Amanda at a casino, a stack of chips in front of her. Amanda at another casino, and another. Dozens of photos, spanning what looked like 2 years. Then there were bank statements, Amanda's name at the top, showing withdrawals of thousands of dollars. 20,000 here, 15,000 there, 30,000 in one transaction. The email had no message except, "Call me. There's more you need to know about what they've done to you." A phone number was listed at the bottom. I called. A woman answered on the first ring. "Mrs. Hutchison?" "This is Rachel, Amanda's sister. We need to talk, and it needs to be somewhere they won't see us." I met Rachel at a coffee shop 40 minutes outside of town. She was younger than Amanda, maybe 35, with tired eyes that darted nervously to the door every few minutes. She clutched a manila envelope like it was a life preserver. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I've been trying to work up the courage to contact you for months." "Tell me." Rachel took a shaky breath. "Amanda isn't who you think she is. Neither is the life she's built with your son. It's all a lie, and you were the target from the beginning." My coffee sat untouched as Rachel laid it all out. Amanda had specifically pursued Brian after learning about Frank's life insurance policy. She'd researched my family, found out about the money, and set Brian up at a gym where he worked out. The meet-cute story they'd told everyone? Manufactured. "Amanda has done this before. Rachel said. In Florida, 8 years ago. She targeted an older man through his nephew. She got them to trust her, borrowed money, forged checks. She nearly drained his whole estate before his daughter hired a private investigator. The family threatened prosecution, and Amanda ran. She changed her name, started over. Changed her name? She was Amanda Schultz in Florida. Now she's Amanda Pearson. Even her last name before she married Brian was fake. She invented a whole backstory. The manila envelope contained evidence. Court documents from Florida showing a civil suit, copies of checks with forged signatures, photos of Amanda with different hair, different style, but unmistakably her, and a newspaper clipping about an elderly man who'd nearly lost his home to financial exploitation. The boutique business? Rachel continued. It never existed. That $50,000 you gave them went straight to pay off Amanda's gambling debts. She owes money to casinos up and down the East Coast. She's been banned from 3 of them. Why are you telling me this now? Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Because I heard about the dinner. One of Amanda's friends posted about it on social media, laughing about how they humiliated you. And I couldn't stay quiet anymore. She's my sister. But what she's doing is evil. She pulled out more papers. Bank statements showing $400,000 in debt that Brian and Amanda had accumulated beyond what I knew about. Payday loans at 30% interest. Personal loans from loan sharks. Credit cards maxed to their limits. They've burned through everything, Rachel said, and when they run out of ways to get more money from you, they're planning to cut off all contact and move to Nevada. Amanda's already been looking at houses there. She told me the plan: squeeze you dry, then disappear. I felt bile rise in my throat. Does Brian know about her past? I don't think so. She's good at lying. Really good. She probably has him convinced that you're the problem, that you're unreasonable and cruel. That's what she did in Florida. She turned the nephew against his own uncle. Rachel leaned forward. But there's something else you need to know. Something worse. Amanda is dangerous when people cut her off. The man in Florida? His house was broken into twice after he stopped giving her money. Nothing major was taken, but his financial documents were stolen. Then someone tried to take out a reverse mortgage on his property, using forged power of attorney documents. The police couldn't prove it was Amanda, but everyone knew. She's vindictive. She's more than vindictive, Mrs. Hutchison. She's calculating, and she doesn't stop. I drove home in a fog. Everything I'd believed about the past 5 years, about my relationship with Brian, about my role in their lives, it was all a lie. I wasn't a helpful mother. I was a mark, a victim, prey. My house felt different when I arrived, wrong somehow. I couldn't put my finger on it until I walked into my home office. The room had been ransacked. File drawers hung open, papers scattered across the floor. My computer was gone. The safe where I kept important documents was open, emptied of everything except old jewelry that held no financial value. I called 911 with shaking hands. The police came, dusted for prints, took a report. The responding officer walked through the house with me. No signs of forced entry, he said. Does anyone else have a key? My son Brian. I gave him a spare years ago for emergencies. The officer's expression was carefully neutral. Ma'am, given the police report you filed yesterday, you might want to change your locks. After they left, I sat amid the scattered papers in my office and tried to understand what they'd been looking for. Financial documents, obviously. But what specifically? Evidence of the forged signatures? Proof of what they'd stolen? My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Drop the police report and pay what you owe. or everyone will know what kind of mother you really are. We have your computer, we have your emails. Don't test us." They had my computer. Years of emails, financial records, personal correspondence. What could they do with that? Forge more documents? Create more debt in my name? Use my words against me? I called Helen Marsh, the attorney Patricia Santos had recommended for the identity theft case. Helen was 56, sharp-eyed, and didn't waste time on pleasantries. "I'm going to be honest with you, Vicky," she said after I'd explained everything. "This is worse than standard identity theft. This is sophisticated, planned fraud by someone who knows you, has access to your life, and has resources. We need to move aggressively." What does that mean? We file for emergency injunctions. We freeze any accounts opened in your name. We get a restraining order if necessary. And we prepare for them to fight back, because they will. How much is this going to cost? Helen was quiet for a moment. Truth? By the time we're done, probably $30,000 to $40,000 in legal fees. But if we don't do this, you could lose everything. They've already stolen from you, forged documents, and broken into your home. This is escalating. I hired her because what choice did I have? But that night, I lay in bed doing math. Legal fees, debts I might be liable for, my dwindling savings. At this rate, I'd be broke within a year. My phone rang at 6 the next morning. Helen's voice was tight. "Vicky, I've been going through the documents you gave me, cross-referencing everything with your credit report. I found something else." My stomach dropped. "What?" "6 months ago, someone took out a reverse mortgage on your house using forged power of attorney documents. The loan was for $150,000. There's a lien against your property." The room spun. My house. The home Frank and I had built a life in. The only real asset I had left. Who signed the documents? According to the paperwork, you did. You granted Amanda power of attorney and authorized the reverse mortgage. But these signatures are forgeries. The notary stamp looks legitimate, but I'm betting if we investigate, we'll find it's fake, too. What does this mean? It means if we can't prove fraud and get the lien removed, you could lose your house. And Vicky, this level of fraud, the sophistication of these forged documents? Amanda had help, professional help, someone in banking or legal who knows how to make forgeries look legitimate. I thought about Rachel's warnings, about Amanda's history, about how good she was at this. "She's done this before," I said. "She's practiced." "Yes," Helen agreed. "Which means she's dangerous. And it means she's not going to stop until we stop her. We need to file emergency motions today. We need to move fast." After hanging up, I went into my bathroom and threw up. My house. The home where I'd raised my boys, where Frank and I had spent 32 years together, where I'd imagined spending the rest of my life. They were trying to take it from me, and they were using my own son to do it. The emergency hearing was set for 3 days later. Helen filed motions to freeze my credit, void the fraudulent loans, and remove the lien on my house pending investigation. She also filed for a temporary restraining order against Brian and Amanda, preventing them from contacting me or accessing any of my accounts. I spent those 3 days installing new locks, setting up a security system, and trying not to fall apart. Every car that drove past made me jump. Every phone notification sent my heart racing. I was living in fear in my own home. The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully in a navy suit Frank had always liked. I needed to look competent, stable, together, not like the confused old woman Amanda would try to paint me as. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Brian and Amanda sat with their lawyer, a slick-looking man named Howard Chase. Amanda wore a demure dress, and had her hair pulled back in a simple style. She looked innocent, sweet even. When our eyes met, she gave me a sad smile, like I was a confused relative she pitied. The hearing began. Helen presented our evidence: the forged signatures, the unauthorized accounts, the reverse mortgage. She was thorough, professional, devastating in her detail. Then it was their turn. Howard Chase stood, buttoned his suit jacket, and began to dismantle everything. Your Honor, this is a tragic case of an elderly woman suffering from cognitive decline who willingly entered into financial arrangements with her son and is now, sadly, unable to remember them clearly. My clients have documentation showing that Mrs. Hutchison agreed to all of these arrangements. He presented papers, emails allegedly from me, agreeing to co-sign loans, text messages discussing the financial arrangements, even a video, grainy and brief, showing me signing documents at Brian's kitchen table. I had no memory of that video, none, but there I was on the screen, pen in hand, signing papers. Furthermore, Chase continued, Mrs. Hutchison has been exhibiting signs of confusion and paranoia. She's made wild accusations against my clients, filed a police report based on false memories, and has cut off contact with her entire family over imagined slights. Then Amanda took the stand. She was brilliant. Tears in her eyes, voice trembling, she told a story about a loving relationship with her mother-in-law that had slowly deteriorated as my memory problems worsened. She would promise to help us, then forget she'd made the promises, Amanda said, dabbing at her eyes. We thought she was just stressed. We didn't realize how serious it was until she started accusing us of stealing from her. Money she'd freely given, arrangements she'd agreed to. It broke our hearts. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Margaret Willow, listened impassively. Then Derek was called to testify. My stomach dropped. What was he doing here? Derek took the stand, avoided my eyes, and began to speak. My mother has been acting strange for about a year now, he said, forgetting conversations, getting confused about what she's agreed to. She'll promise to help with something, then days later act like we never discussed it. At first, we thought it was just normal aging, but it's gotten worse. Can you give specific examples? Chase asked. Last month, she promised to help me with a financial situation. We talked about it for over an hour. She said she'd transfer the money the next day. Then when I followed up, she acted like we'd never had the conversation. She accused me of making it up. Every word was a lie. We'd never discussed any such thing. Derek was committing perjury, helping Brian and Amanda destroy me. The judge asked questions. Helen cross-examined, trying to poke holes in their story. But the damage was done. They'd painted me as a confused old woman, and my own son had helped them do it. Judge Willow made her ruling. Given the conflicting evidence and serious questions about Mrs. Hutchison's mental state, I'm ordering a temporary freeze on all contested accounts pending a full investigation. I'm also ordering a competency evaluation for Mrs. Hutchison before we proceed further. A competency evaluation. They wanted to determine if I was mentally fit to handle my own affairs. Additionally, the judge continued, both parties are to have no contact except through legal counsel. The restraining order is denied as unnecessary at this time, but if there are further incidents, it can be revisited. It was a partial victory and a devastating loss, all at once. The accounts were frozen, which meant Brian and Amanda couldn't access them, but neither could I. My own money, locked away because my competency was in question. Outside the courtroom, Helen's face was grim. They were prepared, too prepared. That video, those emails, they had everything ready. The video was real, I said numbly. I was there, in their kitchen, signing something, but I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was something innocent, and they're using it out of context. Or they drugged you, Helen said bluntly. Rohypnol Xanax in your drink, something to make you compliant and fuzzy on details later. It's more common in elder fraud than people realize. The thought made my skin crawl. Had they drugged me? Taken advantage of me in my own son's home? The next week was a nightmare. Amanda launched a social media campaign that painted me as a tragic figure. She posted photos of family gatherings, her arm around me, big smiles. The captions told a story of a loving daughter-in-law watching helplessly as her husband's mother declined. Praying for healing and clarity for our family, one post read. It got 600 likes. She shared a carefully edited version of events. How I'd suddenly and without warning cut them off financially and accused them of terrible things. How they were heartbroken but understood this was the illness talking. How they just wanted me to get the help I needed. The posts were shared by their friends, by people from church, by neighbors. Within days, I was the talk of the town, the sad old woman losing her mind and lashing out at her loving family. I was disinvited from church events. The women's book club I'd been part of for 12 years stopped responding to my messages. When I went to the grocery store, people whispered and stared. One woman, someone I'd known casually for years, approached me in the produce section. "Vicky, I hope you know we're all praying for you. What you're going through must be so frightening. Maybe you should consider getting some help?" I left the store without buying anything. The worst part was the isolation. My sister in California called after seeing Amanda's posts. Even she sounded uncertain. "Vicky, are you okay?" "Really?" "Because Carol, you know, she had some memory issues before we realized it was early dementia, and she was so convinced everyone was against her." "I'm fine, Louise. I'm being scammed by my daughter-in-law, and everyone believes her instead of me." Of course. It's just, well, maybe you should see a doctor, just to rule things out." Even my own sister doubted me. My credit cards were maxed from legal fees. The freeze on my accounts meant I couldn't access most of my own money. I had $300 in cash and a checking account with $800 in it. That was it. I borrowed $2,000 from Louise to buy groceries and pay utilities. The humiliation of asking burned, but I had no choice. Then my body betrayed me too. The stress, the fear, the isolation, it all culminated one evening when pain exploded in my chest. I couldn't breathe. My left arm went numb. I called 911, thinking this was it. This was how it ended. A heart attack alone in my house, while my son stole everything I had. At the hospital, the doctors determined it wasn't a full heart attack, just severe angina brought on by stress. They kept me overnight for observation. The nurse was kind, but I saw the pity in her eyes. Another old woman alone, no family visiting, probably crazy. When I was finally released the next morning, the hospital social worker tried to talk to me about support systems and managed care facilities. They thought I couldn't take care of myself. I went home to find a note stuck to my door. Brian and Amanda had tried to visit me at the hospital. The nurses, following the judge's orders about no contact, had turned them away. But the note made it clear this wasn't out of concern. "We need to talk. The house payment is due. There are things we need to discuss before this gets worse." They wanted money. Even now, in the middle of all this, they wanted money. Derek called that evening. His voice was different, quieter, almost scared. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something. Not about money. About what's happening." "What about it?" Long pause. What if I told you that maybe I was wrong about some things? Before he could continue, there was a noise in the background. Amanda's voice, sharp and angry. "Who are you talking to? Give me that phone." The line went dead. Then Helen called. Her voice was shaking, and Helen never shook. "Vicky, I need you to sit down." "What is it?" "I've been investigating the reverse mortgage, trying to track down who notarized the fake power of attorney. I found something in the court records that was sealed, but I have a contact who owed me a favor." "Tell me." "Amanda has been building a case to have you declared mentally incompetent. There are medical records from a doctor you've never seen, psychological evaluations you never sat for, witness statements from neighbors and church members about your erratic behavior. It's comprehensive, professional, and completely fabricated." "What does that mean?" "It means, if she succeeds, she can petition for guardianship. With guardianship, she would have legal control over all your assets, all your decisions. She could put you in a care facility. She could sell your house. She could do anything she wanted, and you would have no legal standing to stop her." My vision blurred. "How is this possible?" "The competency hearing the judge ordered?" That's exactly what Amanda wanted. She's been preparing for this. Those social media posts, the testimony in court, the rumors around town, it's all been laying groundwork. She's creating a public narrative that you're incompetent. And if the court-appointed evaluator agrees, even partially, she can use that as ammunition. When is this competency evaluation? 2 weeks. But Vicky, there's more. Something worse. I couldn't imagine what could be worse. While investigating the financial fraud, I found an insurance policy, a life insurance policy on you, taken out 8 months ago using the forged power of attorney. The beneficiary is Brian. The amount is $500,000. The words didn't make sense at first. Then they did, and the world tilted. They took out life insurance on me, using forged documents, which means they were planning ahead. Vicky, I need you to understand what I'm saying. This isn't just fraud anymore. This is a setup. They've positioned themselves to benefit from your death. Are you saying they want to kill me? I'm saying the police need to know about this immediately. I'm saying you need protection. And I'm saying that if you hadn't discovered the fraud when you did, if you hadn't started fighting back, I think you might have had an accident within the next few months." I didn't sleep that night. Helen had contacted Detective Santos, who'd immediately escalated the case to the Financial Crimes Unit and brought in the FBI because of the interstate elements of Amanda's previous fraud in Florida. But investigations took time, and I had 2 weeks until the competency hearing. 2 weeks for Amanda to destroy my credibility completely. 2 weeks for her to convince a court I was incompetent. 2 weeks for her to gain control of my life and my death. Helen came to my house the next morning with a man I didn't know. He was maybe 62, with gray hair and sharp eyes that took in everything. "This is Carl Davies," Helen said. "He's a retired police detective and now works as a private investigator. Carl has experience with elder fraud cases." Carl shook my hand firmly. "Mrs. Hutchison, I've reviewed your case. Your daughter-in-law has done this before, and she's good at it, but she's also arrogant. Arrogant people make mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" "We've been digging into Amanda's background. The name she used before marrying your son wasn't her first identity change. We've found 3 previous names, 2 previous states, and multiple potential victims. Some filed complaints, but she moved before prosecution. She's been doing this for over a decade." He spread papers across my kitchen table. "Here's what we know. Amanda targets families with recent grief. Widows, widowers, people who've lost a spouse and inherited money. She identifies vulnerable men, starts relationships, isolates them from family, and drains the resources. When there's nothing left, she moves on. Why hasn't she been caught? Because she's smart. She forges documents gradually, builds cases for incompetency or confusion, makes herself look like the victim of ungrateful family members. And she's always left before the full scope of the fraud was uncovered. But this time, she stayed too long. She's gotten greedy. What can we do? Carl leaned forward. We can give her enough rope to hang herself, but it requires risk on your part. He explained his plan. I would reach out to Amanda, pretend to surrender. I'd offer to drop all charges, sign over power of attorney, give her what she wanted. We'd record the conversation. If we could get her to admit the fraud, to reveal her plans, we'd have concrete evidence. She's careful, Carl warned. She won't confess easily. You'll have to convince her she's won. And if she suspects a trap, things could get dangerous. More dangerous than they already are? He had no answer for that. I made the call that afternoon, my hands shaking as I dialed Amanda's number. She answered on the third ring, her voice cautious. Vicky, I can't do this anymore, I said, letting my voice crack. The legal fees, the fighting, everyone thinking I'm crazy, I just want peace. Silence on the other end. Then, what are you saying? I'm saying you win. I'll drop the charges. I'll sign whatever you need. I just want to be able to see my grandchildren again. That's all I want. Why would I believe you? Because I'm tired, Amanda. I'm 67 years old. I had a heart episode. I can't keep fighting. You were right. I should have just helped you, like family is supposed to. I was being selfish. More silence. I could almost hear her calculating, weighing whether this was genuine. We should meet, she finally said. Talk about this in person. Can you come here? Tomorrow afternoon? I don't think I should drive. The stress has been too much. I'll be there at 2. After I hung up, Carl emerged from my spare bedroom where he'd been listening. Good. She's interested. Now we wire your house. The next 36 hours were a blur. Carl and a technician set up recording devices in my living room. Cameras hidden in picture frames, microphones in the light fixtures. We tested everything twice. Helen coached me on what to say, how to lead the conversation without being obvious. The goal was to get Amanda talking about the forged documents, the plan for guardianship, anything concrete we could use. That night, I barely slept. What if Amanda saw through the deception? What if she brought Brian? What if this all backfired and made everything worse? At 1:45 the next afternoon, I took a Xanax that my doctor had prescribed for anxiety. Not enough to impair me, just enough to keep my hands from shaking. I needed to seem defeated but coherent. Amanda arrived precisely at 2. She came alone, which was both good and bad. Good because Carl had worried about Brian's presence complicating things. Bad because it meant she was confident enough to face me by herself. She looked around my living room, and I wondered if she was searching for recording equipment, but her expression remained pleasant, almost kind. Thank you for reaching out, she said, settling onto my couch. I've been so worried about you. I've been thinking about everything, I said carefully, and I realize I've been unfair. You and Brian have been trying to build a life, and I've been treating you like enemies. We're not enemies, Vicky. We're family. The Hawaii trip. I overreacted to what was obviously a joke. She smiled. It wasn't our finest moment. Brian felt terrible afterward. He wanted to apologize, but things spiraled so quickly. This was the hard part. Keeping her talking, steering the conversation toward admission without being obvious. I know I agreed to help with the business, I continued. Amanda's boutique. I just wish I could have seen it open. Her smile didn't waver. These things take time. Retail is tricky, of course. And the loans. I know I signed things. My memory has been so foggy lately. That's why we've been concerned. You've seemed confused. We danced around it for 20 minutes. She was careful, giving nothing away, keeping her mask firmly in place. I started to panic. This wasn't working. She was too smart, too controlled. Then I shifted tactics. Amanda, I need to know. When you get guardianship, will you let me stay in my house, or do I need to prepare to move? Her eyes flickered. Just for a second. What makes you think there will be guardianship? The competency hearing. Everyone thinks I'm losing my mind. Maybe they're right. Maybe I do need someone to handle things for me. She leaned back, studying me. If it came to that, we'd make sure you were comfortable. Somewhere safe. Not here? This house is too big for one person. Too many memories. Sometimes a fresh start is what we need. And the money from selling it would be used for your care, of course. That's what guardians do. They protect assets and use them for the ward's benefit. She wasn't admitting fraud, but she was revealing her plans. Carl had said to keep pushing. I just feel so foolish about everything. The police report, the accusations. I must have signed those documents and forgotten. The credit cards, the reverse mortgage, all of it. Memory is fragile, Amanda said, especially as we age. The reverse mortgage. I don't even remember when we did that. Was it in your kitchen? Does it matter? What matters is getting you the help you need. She stood, preparing to leave. This was my last chance. If she walked out now, we had nothing. There is one thing I want, I said. Before I sign anything, I want to know the truth about the Hawaii trip. Was it ever real? She paused at the door. What do you mean? I mean, was there ever actually a trip planned? Or was it just meant to hurt me? And there it was. A crack in her mask. A flash of something cold and cruel. Does it matter? She said. You got the message either way. What message? That you're not as important as you think you are. That your money is more valuable than your presence. That you're just a bank account to withdraw from until there's nothing left. My breath caught. She was saying it. Actually saying it. Is that all I ever was to you? She turned fully, and her face was different now. The warmth completely gone, replaced by something calculating and mean. Oh, Vicky, you were so easy. Sad widow, desperate to feel needed, practically throwing money at us. Brian was skeptical at first, thought you'd figure it out, but I knew better. I knew you'd drain yourself dry trying to buy love. And the business? There is no business. Never was. That money went to pay off debts you didn't even know existed. Gambling debts, mostly. I have a problem, or so the therapists say. But it's only a problem if you get caught, right? Keep her talking. Get it all. What happens after the competency hearing? She smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. After I have guardianship, you'll go into a nice care facility. Nothing too expensive. We'll need to preserve assets. The house will sell. Your accounts will be consolidated under my control. And you'll live out your remaining years somewhere comfortable while I finally get what I deserve. My remaining years. You're 67, Vicky. Not in great health, as we saw with that heart episode. These things happen. Old people die, sometimes sooner than expected. The threat was clear. The recording was getting it all, but I couldn't stop now. What about Brian? Does he know about any of this? Brian knows what I tell him to know. He's weak, sentimental, too attached to his pathetic mother. But he'll come around. He always does. And if he doesn't, she shrugged. Well, there are ways to handle that too. The front door suddenly opened. Brian stumbled in, his face flushed, his eyes unfocused. He'd been drinking. Amanda? Your car's in the driveway. What are you doing here? Amanda's face went white. Brian, go home. But Brian saw me, saw Amanda's expression, and something clicked in his alcohol-soaked brain. What's going on? Mom, are you okay? She's fine. We were just talking. Let's go. But Brian moved further into the room. Talking about what? The guardianship? The care home? I heard you outside. You heard wrong. I heard you say you'd put Mom in a home and sell her house, without even telling me. Amanda, what the hell? And then they were arguing, right there in my living room. Amanda trying to control the situation, Brian's alcohol loosening years of careful manipulation. He accused her of lying to him. She accused him of being weak and stupid, their marriage unraveling in real time. I never wanted to hurt Mom, Brian slurred. You said we just needed help, temporary help. You said she wanted to help us. Your mother is a fool who's outlived her usefulness, Amanda spat. Just like you're about to. Brian stared at her like he'd never seen her before. Who are you? I'm the only thing keeping you from complete ruin. You're in debt up to your eyeballs because you're incompetent with money. You'd be homeless if it wasn't for me. Because you spent it all. They didn't notice as I quietly left the room and went to my bedroom, where Carl was watching everything on monitors. We got it all, he said quietly. Everything we need, but Amanda and Brian were still fighting. And then I heard Brian say something that made my blood run cold. I'm telling her. I'm telling Mom everything. She deserves to know what we did. You're not telling her anything. You can't stop me. A crash. The sound of something breaking. Brian's voice, scared, now. What are you doing? Put that down. I ran back to the living room. Amanda had grabbed a heavy crystal vase from my mantel and was holding it over her head, facing Brian. Her face was twisted with rage. You're not ruining this, she hissed. Not when I'm this close. Carl burst into the room behind me, his phone already out, and calling 911. Police are on the way. Put it down, Amanda. She whirled, seeing Carl for the first time. Understanding flooded her face. The recording equipment. The trap. She'd been caught. You wired the house, she said flatly. Yes. She looked at the vase in her hands, at Brian cowering against the wall, at me standing there with Carl. She was calculating. I could see it. Weighing options. How much trouble she was in. Whether she could still talk her way out. Then she smiled, set down the vase, and straightened her clothes. This proves nothing. An argument between a husband and wife in a private home. My word against yours about what was said and what it meant. It's recorded, Carl said. So? I'll say I was playing along with your delusions, trying to keep you calm until help could arrive. I'll say you lured me here. That you were having a mental health crisis and I was trying to protect you. The worst part was, she was right. She could spin this. She was that good. But then Brian spoke. No, he said. No more lies. He looked at me, and my son's eyes were filled with tears and shame and something that might have been clarity. Mom, I'm so sorry. For everything. I'll testify. I'll tell them the truth about all of it. The forged signatures, the stolen money, the plans, all of it. Amanda's confidence cracked. Brian, shut up. Don't say another word. I'm done, Amanda. I'm done letting you destroy my family. The police arrived 5 minutes later. Amanda was arrested, but not for fraud. Not yet. She was arrested for assault after Brian showed them the bruise on his arm where she'd grabbed him during their fight. It wasn't enough. It wasn't justice. But it was something. Carl told me later what they'd found in their follow-up investigation. Amanda had been planning far more than I'd known. The insurance policy on my life wasn't the only one. She'd taken out policies on Brian, too, and on both grandchildren. She'd been researching untraceable poisons. Her computer search history was damning. How to make death look natural. Inheriting property after death. Legal rights of spouses after sudden death. She hadn't just been planning to rob me. She'd been planning to eliminate anyone who stood between her and total control of the family's assets. If I hadn't walked out of that dinner, if I hadn't stopped the car payment, if I hadn't started asking questions, I would be dead within months. And they would have called it natural causes. Amanda spent 3 days in jail before her lawyer posted bail on the assault charge. But by then, the FBI's investigation into her financial fraud across multiple states had gained momentum. The evidence from my recording, combined with the files they'd already been building, was enough for them to arrest her again within a week. This time, the charges were serious. Federal wire fraud, identity theft, forgery, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, and attempted fraud across state lines. They were still investigating whether they could make an attempted murder charge stick, but the prosecutor told us it was difficult without more concrete evidence of action beyond internet searches. Still, Amanda was looking at 15 to 20 years if convicted on all counts. Brian was questioned extensively. The FBI and local police had to determine whether he was a co-conspirator or another victim. In the end, they decided he'd been manipulated and used, but hadn't knowingly participated in the worst of Amanda's crimes. He wasn't charged, but he was devastated. He showed up at my house 2 weeks after Amanda's second arrest. He looked 20 years older. His eyes were hollow, his face gaunt. He stood on my porch and cried, "I don't know how to make this right," he said. "I don't know if I can. I didn't invite him in. I wasn't ready for that, but I didn't close the door either." "Tell me the truth," I said. "All of it." So he did. He told me how Amanda had pursued him, how perfect she'd seemed, how she'd slowly started mentioning my life insurance money, how she'd suggested ways I could help them. He swore he didn't know about the forged signatures until the police investigation started. He thought I'd actually signed those documents, even if I didn't remember. "She told me you were getting forgetful," he said. "She showed me notes you'd supposedly left, conversations you didn't remember. She made me believe you were declining, and I wanted to believe it because it meant I didn't have to face what we were really doing, taking advantage of you. And the dinner? Telling me I wasn't part of the family?" He flinched. "That was Amanda's idea. She said we needed to create distance so you wouldn't expect to be involved in our finances anymore. She said it would be easier if you pulled away voluntarily. I went along with it. God help me, I went along with it, and I'll never forgive myself." He told me about the mounting debts, the pressure, the way Amanda had convinced him that I owed them help because Frank's life insurance had made me wealthy while they struggled. She'd twisted everything, made him see me as selfish and withholding instead of generous and used. "What happens now?" I asked. "I'm filing for divorce, trying to protect the kids from this, trying to keep the house out of foreclosure, but I'll probably lose it. I'm working 2 jobs, going to therapy, and trying to figure out how I became this person who betrayed his own mother." He looked at me with desperate eyes. "Is there any chance you could ever forgive me?" I didn't know. I told him I needed time. He nodded, said he understood, and left. Derek came by that evening. He looked ashamed but sober. clear-eyed in a way he hadn't been in months. "I testified against you," he said without preamble. "I lied under oath because Amanda threatened to tell my girlfriend and my boss about my gambling debts. She said she'd ruin my life. But that's no excuse. I chose to lie instead of choosing you, and I'll regret it forever. Why are you telling me this now? Because Amanda's going to prison, because Brian finally woke up, and because I need you to know that I'm sorry, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making it up to you." He told me he'd gone to the prosecutor voluntarily and recanted his testimony. He'd confessed to perjury and accepted that there might be legal consequences. He'd also gone to my neighbors, to the church, to everyone Amanda had poisoned against me, and told them the truth. "I'm paying you back," he said. "All the money I owe you. It'll take years, but I'm paying you back. $500 a month from my paycheck, and I'm done with gambling. Done with get-rich-quick schemes. I'm in GA meetings 3 times a week." I wanted to believe him, but trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. "Time will tell," I said. He nodded and handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $500 and a handwritten letter detailing every dollar he owed me and a payment schedule. It was something. Helen worked tirelessly to unwind the financial damage. The reverse mortgage was voided when the bank's fraud investigation confirmed the forged documents. The credit cards and loans in my name were being challenged one by one. Some were dismissed entirely. Others would require continued legal work. "You'll get most of your credit restored," Helen told me. "But the money they actually spent, that's harder to recover. The court can order restitution, but they have to have money to pay it. Brian's essentially bankrupt. Everything will go through probate when Amanda's convicted. I'd never see most of the money again. I'd have to accept that." The competency hearing was canceled. With Amanda's arrest and the revelation of her fraud, there was no longer any question about my mental state. The prosecutor even issued a public statement clarifying that the allegations of cognitive decline had been part of an elaborate fraud scheme. Rachel, Amanda's sister, called to check on me. She'd been cooperating with the FBI, giving them everything she knew about Amanda's past victims. 3 other families had come forward with similar stories. Amanda had destroyed a dozen lives across 3 states over 12 years. "I should have come forward sooner," Rachel said, "before she married your son. But she's my sister, and I kept hoping she'd change. I'm sorry. You helped in the end. That matters." The community's response was mixed. Some people apologized for believing Amanda's lies. Others just quietly disappeared from my life, too embarrassed to admit they'd doubted me. The church issued a statement about supporting victims of elder fraud, which felt hollow given that they'd shunned me for weeks based on social media posts. But there were bright spots. Carl and I became friends. His mother came up from Arizona to visit, and we spent evenings comparing notes on how we'd almost been victimized by the same type of predator. My son wanted to give her money. Carl's mother, Dorothy, told me over coffee. She'd found him on some dating site, was already talking about moving in together after 2 weeks. Carl investigated her and found out she had 3 different identities and a trail of fraud accusations. If he hadn't been a detective, I would have lost everything just like you almost did. Helen became more than just my lawyer. We met for lunch every week, talking about things beyond the case. She'd been through her own betrayal, a business partner who'd embezzled from their firm years ago. She understood the particular pain of being betrayed by someone close. The grandchildren, Tyler and Chloe, reached out through carefully worded emails. They were horrified by what their mother had done. They'd been kept in the dark about most of it, believing their father's family was helping them through hard times and that I'd turned my back on them. "We didn't know," Tyler wrote. "Mom told us you didn't want to come to Hawaii because you didn't like spending time with us. We were hurt, but we believed her. I'm so sorry, Grandma. I agreed to meet them at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. It was awkward at first. Chloe cried through most of it. Tyler kept apologizing. But slowly, carefully, we started to rebuild something. Can we see you sometimes? Chloe asked. Maybe once a month. Dad says it's okay if you are. I'd like that, I said. Brian and I met once a month for coffee, just the two of us. The first few meetings were stilted, painful. He wanted to apologize, to explain, to make me understand. I let him talk. I didn't forgive him yet, but I listened. By the third meeting, we started to talk about other things. His job, his therapy, how the kids were coping, my health, my plans, my slowly rebuilding social life. We weren't mother and son again. Not yet. But we were two people trying to figure out if there was anything left to salvage. I don't expect forgiveness, he said at one of these meetings. I know what I did is unforgivable. But I want you to know I'm trying to be better, trying to be the son you deserved all along. Derek kept his promise. Every month, $500 appeared in my account. He sent me updates on his recovery, his therapy, his efforts to rebuild his life. He'd broken up with his girlfriend after she couldn't handle the truth about his problems, but he said it was for the best. He needed to fix himself first. I'm learning to be honest, he wrote in one email. It's harder than it sounds. Amanda's trial was set for 8 months away. The prosecutor was building an ironclad case. Between the recording from my house, the FBI's evidence of her previous fraud, the forged documents, and the life insurance policies, they were confident of conviction. She'll take a plea deal, the prosecutor told me. 15 years, eligible for parole in 10. We're offering it to avoid the cost and uncertainty of trial. Will you take it? That depends on you. You're the victim here. If you want your day in court, if you want to look her in the eye and make a victim impact statement, we'll go to trial. I thought about it for a long time. Did I want to face Amanda again? Did I want to hear her excuses, her justifications, her attempts to minimize what she'd done? In the end, I told them to take the plea deal. I didn't need to face her. I didn't need her to admit her guilt or apologize. I just needed her gone, unable to hurt anyone else. Amanda pleaded guilty to multiple federal fraud charges. The judge sentenced her to 15 years in federal prison. She'd be 61 when she was eligible for parole. Her life as a con artist was over. Carl told me they'd found evidence of 6 other potential victims Amanda had been researching. People with money, recent grief, family situations ripe for exploitation. The FBI was contacting all of them, warning them, protecting them from becoming her next targets. I'd stopped her. My decision to walk out of that dinner, to stop the car payment, to start asking questions, I'd saved 6 other families from what I'd been through. It wasn't revenge, but it was justice. And that was enough. 6 months after Amanda's sentencing, I woke up on Thanksgiving morning, in my own bed, in my own house, with my credit restored and my future secure. Not the future I'd planned, but a future nonetheless. I'd spent the previous week preparing for a dinner that would have seemed impossible a year ago. My dining room table was set for 8. Nothing fancy, just simple white plates and autumn-colored napkins, but it was mine. Derek arrived first, carrying a pumpkin pie he'd made himself. "It's probably terrible," he said. "I've never baked before, but I wanted to try." "It's perfect," I told him, and meant it. Carl came next with his mother Dorothy. She'd been visiting from Arizona and had become a dear friend. We'd started a support group together for elder fraud victims, meeting twice a month at the community center. Helping others heal was helping us heal, too. Helen arrived with a bottle of wine and a warm hug. "I brought the good stuff," she said. "We're celebrating survival today." Rachel came, Amanda's sister who'd helped expose the truth. She'd been ostracized by the rest of her family for testifying against Amanda. But she'd found a new family in us. People who understood that sometimes love means accountability. Tyler and Chloe arrived together, both of them taller and older looking than just months ago. They'd been through trauma, therapy, and the pain of watching their mother go to prison. But they were here, and that meant everything. Brian was invited, but called that morning to say he couldn't make it. He was working the holiday shift at his second job, trying to keep up with bills and child support. I was disappointed, but understood. Rebuilding took time. We gathered around the table, this patchwork family of wounded people who'd found each other in the aftermath of betrayal. I looked at their faces and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. "Should we say grace?" Dorothy asked. Everyone looked at me. I wasn't sure what to say. The traditional words felt hollow after everything we'd been through. But then, I knew. "I'm grateful for the people who stand beside us when everything falls apart," I began. "I'm grateful for the strength to walk away from those who hurt us. I'm grateful for second chances and fresh starts. And I'm grateful that sometimes losing the family you thought you had makes room for the family you actually need." There was a chorus of quiet amens. Then we ate and talked and laughed. Not everything was perfect. There were moments of awkward silence, of pain showing through the smiles, of grief for what we'd all lost. But there was also hope, and that was more than I'd had a year ago. Derek sat beside me during dinner. "I made my 12th payment yesterday," he said quietly. 60 more to go. I know. Thank you. No, thank you. For not giving up on me. For still being here." Chloe showed me pictures on her phone of a school art project. Tyler told me about his plans for college. Dorothy shared updates about the support group, families we'd helped, people who'd avoided fraud because of our education efforts. Carl raised a glass. "To Vicky," he said, "who walked out of a dinner party and saved her own life." "Hear, hear," everyone echoed. After the meal, as we were cleaning up, Rachel pulled me aside. "Amanda wrote to me from prison," she said. "I don't know if you want to know what she said." "Tell me." "She says she's sorry, says she's in therapy, finally dealing with her gambling addiction and the trauma that made her who she is. Says she understands if no one ever forgives her, but she wanted me to know she's trying to change." "Do you believe her?" Rachel was quiet for a moment. "I want to. She's my sister. But I also know that Amanda has spent her entire adult life manipulating people, telling them what they want to hear. So I don't know. Maybe she's really changed. Maybe she's just practicing new cons on prison therapists. Time will tell." "That's all we can do," I agreed. "Wait and see." As everyone was leaving, hugging goodbye, and promising to see each other soon, Derek hung back. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think you'll ever really forgive me and Brian? Or will there always be this distance, this wall between us?" I thought about his question, about trust broken and slowly rebuilt, about the monthly payments that showed commitment, about the grandchildren who needed stability, about Brian working 2 jobs and going to therapy, about the impossibility of going back to what was and the possibility of creating something new. "I don't know if we can ever go back to what we were," I said honestly. "But maybe we can build something different, something based on truth instead of obligation, reality instead of expectations. It won't look like what I thought family should look like, but it might be better. more real. Derek hugged me, and I let him. It wasn't forgiveness, not completely, but it was something, a start. After everyone left, I stood in my living room, looking at the family photos still on the walls. Some of them would have to come down, pictures too painful to keep displayed, but others could stay. The ones from before Amanda, the ones that captured real moments of joy. I'd lost $187,000. I'd spent $43,000 on legal fees. My retirement plans had changed dramatically. I'd never get back the money, or the years, or the innocence of believing my family loved me unconditionally. But I'd gained something too. I'd found my spine. I'd learned to say no. I'd discovered that I could survive betrayal and come out stronger. I'd built new relationships based on honesty. I'd helped protect other people from similar pain. The woman who'd walked out of Brian's dinner party 18 months ago had been broken and betrayed. The woman standing in her living room now was different. Scarred, yes. Wary, certainly. But also powerful. Autonomous. Free. I'd reclaimed my life, my dignity, and myself. And no one would ever take that from me again. I walked outside into the cool November evening, exactly like the night I'd walked out of that terrible dinner. But everything was different now. I wasn't running away. I wasn't broken. I was standing in my own space, on my own terms, secure in who I was and what I was worth. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but mine. There would be more challenges, more complicated moments with my sons, more work to rebuild trust, more healing needed. But I would face it all from a position of strength, surrounded by people who valued me for who I was, not what I could give them. That was worth more than any amount of money. That was everything. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to make the painful choice to walk away from family for your own well-being? How did you find the strength to set boundaries with the people you loved most? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who's struggling with a similar situation. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about resilience, survival, and finding strength in impossible situations. And share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to protect yourself, even from family. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, you're never too old to reclaim your life, and you're never wrong to demand respect and honesty from the people who claim to love you. Take care of yourselves, and may you always have the courage to walk away from those who diminish your worth.